I, 29 years old, am a mom of two girls aged 7 and 4. About a year and a half ago, I met my now partner. Let's call him Mark, 39 years old. We worked in the same company, and he was my immediate boss. When we met, I'd just lost the father of my two girls. We were separated, but he had been severely ill for 2 years before he passed away. And I was his primary caregiver, mainly because his family was, and still is, extremely toxic. For our daughters as well, we knew it was a possibility he would pass, so we wanted him to have as much time with them as possible. So when I met my now partner, I had no intention of getting into a relationship. However, we spent a lot of time together, and he was sweet, kind, and reaffirming. It felt nice having someone who didn't treat me like I was broken, although in hindsight, I would. Mark is older, loves working out, funny, goofy, and extremely charming. And things between us moved really fast. I would keep giving myself mental notes to pump the brakes, but we kept speeding through. A couple of months in, he met my girls, and they fell in love with him, and he with them. They have a very good relationship that I am beyond grateful for. My problem is Mark tends to be incredibly volatile and unpredictable. He was previously married, and it ended really badly. So I feel he projects that onto me. He can be happy-go-lucky one minute and mad as hell the next. He's not aggressive or threatening, but I have always had this nagging feeling that I can't 100% relax around him. I boiled it down to being jaded from my previous relationship, but it's been impossible to shake. My family also has reservations about him. We have had really bad fights about things I genuinely never have had to get into arguments with any man about, like intimacy. He can be demanding even when I am unwell. And I have told him about traumatic past experiences, how uncomfortable I get when he doesn't respect me, or gets mad when I'm not in the mood, or requests a little more tenderness than just getting down to it. He isn't an inconsiderate lover, and when we get into it, he's attentive, but it makes me feel all weird afterward, especially if I initially didn't want to. I am currently 20 weeks pregnant, and we moved in together in February. He's currently unemployed and looking for work, so I take care of the bulk of our expenses for the meantime. But since I moved, it's like living in a stranger's house. 4 days into the move, we ended up having a blow-up because I went to him about a conversation he had with my eldest, nothing serious, just a small matter. And he full-blown started yelling at me because my daughter had come to report him, which was 100% not true. I overheard it in the kitchen and later decided to discuss it with him, and he lost it. The other incident was when I was unwell, so our house help made dinner. He started yelling at me that he doesn't know who he married, me or her, because she can't cook for him. I decided not to get into it and got up from a horrible migraine and being violently ill all day and made him food. Then there was his birthday, which we unfortunately missed because of finances. So when I got some cash, I made a cake with the girls, bought him a gift that I pre-ordered, and he proceeded to insist no one sing happy birthday because it already passed. Then, when my youngest asked if we could sing for her, he proceeded to throw a tantrum and raise the television volume until I got pissed and asked him to stop. I still gave him the gift that he proceeded to say he was under no obligation to accept, and refused the cake when the kids offered it to him. I was so mad at this that we got into a pretty bad argument that ended in him asking me to decide when I wanted to leave, but I subsequently haven't. The last straw for me has been this week. He had been making comments about my weight since I moved in that were playful at first, and I didn't mind, but I got somewhere where I told him that they made me really uncomfortable because I am gaining weight due to the pregnancy. This week, unprompted and unprovoked, we were having lunch, and he just turned to me and said, "I have gained weight like a pig." When I just silently stared at him, he said, "Don't stare. If you don't like what I just said, just say it." I repeated his words, and he said, "Pig is fine," and proceeded to eat. I just sat there stunned. He sent me an, "I'm sorry I said that. My words were uncalled for," after I sent him a text that same night at 1 a.m. from the couch. I have since been sleeping on the couch because I feel so put off by him that the thought of him touching me really isn't appealing. I think I just torpedoed my life, and I can't see a way to unfuck myself. At one point, I considered a termination just to have this end. But it would also affect my girls, and I don't want them to lose another father just when they have healed. What should I do? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You are not doing your girls any favors by keeping them in an unhappy household with an unstable father figure. A shitty father figure is not better than no father figure. Do you want your girls to grow up walking on eggshells? Do you want them to grow up learning that it's appropriate for a woman to put up with shittiness from a guy just because he's not shitty sometimes? Your girls have seen how bad he can be. They will understand. The transition may be hard on them, but it will be a wonderful lesson for them to see that you do not put up with people who disrespect you or who disrespect them. Get out. This is not going to get better. You being pregnant is empowering him to reveal his true self more. And you having an infant will empower him even more. In your shoes, I would absolutely terminate and move out. This is not going to get better. Comment 2. OP, please listen to this person. Your daughters absolutely will absorb his behavior so quickly. And yet undoing that absorption can take years. I personally went through this. I left him when my daughter was 7. She is now 12, and I'm still hearing new feelings about him from her. Feelings she's held for years, and clearly only now feels comfortable sharing with me. And we are super duper tight. This will affect your children in ways you can't really comprehend. Just get out. He's out of control and it's bad for all of you. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more of my story. So, after the whole pig comment, things didn't get any better. Mark's been on edge, snapping over the smallest things. Like the other day, he blew up because I forgot to buy his favorite cereal. It's like walking on eggshells in my own home. And the girls, they're picking up on the tension. My eldest asked me if Mark was mad at her because she heard us arguing after bedtime. Broke my heart. Then, out of nowhere, Mark's ex-wife shows up. She's been out of the picture for years, but here she is on my doorstep, telling me she needs to talk to Mark about their son. I didn't even know he had a son. Mark never mentioned him, not once. The look on his face when he saw her, it was like he saw a ghost. They argued in the living room while I tried to keep the girls busy in their room. I couldn't hear everything, but she was furious, saying he hadn't paid child support in months. The next day, Mark's mood was worse than ever. He wouldn't talk to me about his ex or his son. I felt like I was living with a stranger. And then, as if things couldn't get more complicated, I got a call from my sister. She told me she saw Mark at a bar with some woman, laughing and looking way too close. I confronted him and he denied it, said my sister was trying to stir up trouble, but I could tell he was lying. The trust was just gone. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't take the lies, the anger, the uncertainty. I needed support, so I called my mom. She's always been my rock. She listened, and then she said something that hit me hard. She told me I needed to think about my girls and the baby on the way. That I had to make a decision, not just for me, but for them too. That night, I lay awake on the couch, thinking about everything. I thought about leaving, but where would I go? I thought about staying, but could I really live like this? And then, in the middle of the night, Mark came out of the bedroom. He sat down on the floor next to the couch and started crying. He said he was sorry, that he was scared of turning into his own father, who was hurtful and that he didn't want to lose us. He begged me to forgive him. I was torn. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell him it was too late. But another part of me, the part that remembered the man I fell in love with, felt weak and desperate. I forgave him. I told him we'd work it out, that we'd get help. But as I said the words, I felt like I was betraying myself, betraying my girls. The next day, I found out I was laid off from my job. The company was downsizing, and just like that, I was unemployed. The timing couldn't have been worse. Mark said he'd step up, that he'd find a job, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stuck in a cycle I couldn't escape. So here I am, trying to hold my family together, feeling more lost than ever. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm trying to stay strong for my girls and for the little one on the way. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend turns every argument into a fight where I end up hurt. So after 6 years, I left him with nothing but an empty apartment and a lesson in respect. Myself, 26-year-old female, and my partner, 29-year-old male, have been together for 6 years and will regularly get into huge arguments that end up being hours long and often end up with one of us physically hurt. It will start small, with me trying to call his attention to a behavior that I find hurtful and that I'm not okay with, and I'd like to change or even just don't understand and would like to talk about. He will say things have happened when they haven't, turn it around on me, completely deny what I'm saying even though it just happened, or do anything else to get the conversation to stop, instead of talking about it with me healthily. Eventually, when this makes me cry because he won't just hear me and take accountability, or even really discuss my feelings, the despair of trying so hard and feeling like I'm being mentally toyed with takes over, and eventually start to cry. When this happens, it's game over for him. He will do anything, it seems, to be the most upset. If I'm crying silently, he'll ignore it. If I'm upset enough and crying hard enough that, God forbid, I sniffle or quietly allow the sobs to come from my chest, largely because I can't breathe properly while trying to suppress the need to sob or make any kind of sound, then he will act like he's crying and start to talk over my crying, saying things about whatever situation we're in that just isn't true. When that doesn't work because I'm too upset to give in to his reactivity, and even in tears, still remind him of what's actually happened and how it all started, he will then resort to yelling. If yelling doesn't work and I'm still crying, trying desperately to get us back on track and have a healthy discussion, he will start screaming at the top of his lungs at me, generally in public or in front of an open window, when there are people outside, and say things like, "Just leave me alone," and "Haven't you done enough?" He'll storm in and out of the apartment or car while doing this, slamming doors and drawing a lot of embarrassing attention to us both. He also will start smashing his head on things in front of me, or hitting himself in the face, break things, leave holes in walls, withhold my personal things literally over my head or out of the car window. And if I get too close to try and stop him from doing any of that, he physically hurts me. I know all of this isn't okay, but right now, I'm hung up on why the hell he always needs to be more upset than me. In these situations, when I started off calm and understanding, and he could have just had a grown-up conversation, the pattern of getting more reactive when I cry is undeniable at this point. Am I crazy? I feel so lost and stuck in this cycle. Why does he do this? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Because he is hurtful and employing the DARVO technique, deny, attack, reverse victim order, but you are distracting yourself. Focusing on why keeps you from seeing the real problem and taking the right action to solve it. This is not a relationship that will give you peace or joy or a sense of safety. Humans cannot live for too long without those things. Comment 2. Do you need help finding the resources that could get you out of this situation? Are you unable to research because it puts you in danger? Please let us know, because I, for one, would be happy to find a way to help you. I know I already posted once, but I don't want it to get lost in my wall of text. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking with me here. Things have only gotten more intense since my last update. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Last week we had another blowout. I found messages on his phone to someone he swore he'd stopped talking to. When I confronted him, the usual pattern unfolded, but this time he took it a step further. He grabbed my phone and threw it against the wall, shattering it. I was left without any way to call for help or reach out to friends. I've been reflecting on why he always needs to one-up my emotions. I remember his mom once telling me about his childhood, how his parents would dismiss his feelings, always telling him to be strong and not to show weakness. I guess that's where it started. This need to be the most hurt, the most wronged, to always be the victim. The next day I went to work with a bruised arm, a reminder of the struggle to get my phone back. My coworker noticed and offered me a place to stay. I was torn. Leaving felt like giving up, but staying felt like drowning. I decided to stay with my coworker for a few days to clear my head. During those days, I got a call from our landlord. Apparently, my partner had caused a scene in the apartment complex, yelling and throwing things around in the common area, The landlord was fed up and threatened eviction. This was the escalation I'd feared, but also the push I needed. I went back to the apartment to find a hole in our bedroom door and our pictures torn up. It was like he was trying to erase the good times, to justify his anger. I couldn't understand it. Why destroy memories of love and happiness? I had to make a choice. I could go back to the cycle of arguments and destruction, or I could leave for good. I chose the latter. I packed a bag with essentials, took some personal documents, and left a note saying I couldn't do it anymore. I'm now staying with my coworker, looking for a new place, and figuring out how to move on. It's not easy, but I feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. I'm starting to see that I'm not the crazy one, that his actions are his own, and I don't have to be part of that chaos. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend's ex shows up pregnant and tries to wreck our lives, but I turn the tables and become the mom she could never be. My boyfriend received a letter in the mail yesterday stating that the Department of Social Services for our county has removed his little sister from his dad and stepmom's custody, and they are looking for a foster home and potentially permanent home for her. My boyfriend is the next of kin, so he has 30 days to decide and fill out a form showing interest in adoption or fostering if this is something he wants to do. He seems nervous but also excited, and he is going to be calling DSS today to ask questions and tell them he wants to at least meet his sister for the first time. I love this for him. I guess I'm just wondering what I should be prepared for with all of this. I don't want this girl to feel like I'm filling the role as her new mom or parent in a way that makes her uncomfortable if my boyfriend chooses to foster her. I am working from home full-time though, and my boyfriend works long hours in person. So a lot of the responsibilities to care for her will ultimately fall on me. I have infertility issues, so I'm a little happy to meet her and would love to help my boyfriend with everything. I know this might sound sensitive of me, but I guess I have a lot of worries right now, such as, will I be treated like a second parent, and my house rules or suggestions for parenting/fostering be taken into consideration, even though this is my boyfriend's little sister and not biologically related to me. I have highly managed OCD and work as a crisis counselor. Will my family and partner hold this over my head anytime I have a reasonable concern about this little girl being safe and cautious when it is necessary? I'm not married, but I have been living with and dating my boyfriend for close to 7 years now. Will I even be able to be on any paperwork for foster care, or will my boyfriend get all legal rights? If there's ever an emergency with my boyfriend, would she be returned to DSS because I'm not legally her parent? I worry I would get attached. I also have thoughts today about my infertility issues. I have had, and it's making me a little sad, to be honest. I gave up on wanting kids over a year ago because of everything, and this is feeling super sudden. I had a pregnancy scare 2 years ago, and my boyfriend was very stern and firm with me, stating he was not happy and did not want a kid. He would support my decision, but strongly encourage a baby unaliving. It makes me a bit sad to think that he is perfectly okay with the idea of me stepping in to parent his little sister. Yet he wasn't okay if it was our own baby I had myself. What is different this time? I don't understand what changed his mind. Before, he hated the idea of a kid, and now he's excited. I guess I'm a little hurt when I think of that, but I know the circumstances here are totally different. Because this baby girl has either us or the system, and could end up in a bad placement home. Another thing is, nearly 5 years ago, my partner said he would propose to me in the near future, and it never happened. I suppose I don't want to be blindsided because of my excitement to help foster this baby girl, and then never ever get a proposal from my boyfriend. It still has not happened to this day, and I worry about being strung along and kept around solely to help where I'm needed. Parenting his sister, intimacy, cleaning, whatever. I know that probably sounds dramatic, but you just hear horror stories about women stepping in to be a parental figure for a man's kids, and then him cheating on her all while she's at home, working her butt off caring for the kids. I really feel like my boyfriend still won't ever propose to me, to be honest. And I don't think we will have a kid of our own, which I would be fine with because I don't want to go through miscarriages again. And my boyfriend and I both have college educations. And I think we are generally well-rounded people and would do great as parents. I just have so many racing thoughts. And I want to make sure I am wanted and I'm not going to be treated like a nanny in all of this. It would break my heart. I want to be involved in decisions and responsibilities equally and share that with him if we end up fostering his sister. What should I ask him? How do I mentally prepare for all of this? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It sounds like there's a lot going on here other than his sister. I don't think he wants to marry you or have kids with you. If those are things that you want, you will need to do them with someone else. I'm not sure what your infertility issues are, but it sounds like you haven't been actively trying. A lot of fertility problems are treatable. You won't know unless you try. You need to have a real, honest conversation about this. This should be the one person you can talk to about everything. I would not want to raise a child without any legal rights or protections either. That is a very, very reasonable concern. Comment 2. Will I be treated like a second parent? About as much as you are currently treated like his wife. In other words, not at all. You'll be a nanny, period, and a full-time one for at least the next 2 years before she starts school. Your job? Working at all? Forget it. Forget this idea. He's getting to act all noble off your sweat and blood. You know he's not committed to you because he refuses to marry you. And this is his excuse not to have a child with you. I honestly can't grasp why you are still with him anyway, even before this issue arose. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, my boyfriend decided to foster his sister, and we were all set to welcome her into our home. But then, his ex showed up out of nowhere, claiming she wanted to be involved. She had always been the jealous type, and it seemed like she couldn't stand him moving on and building a family without her. At first, I thought she just wanted to cause trouble, but then she dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant with his child. My boyfriend was shocked, and I was devastated. He swore he hadn't seen her since we got together, but the timeline, it just about added up. He must have cheated on me right at the start of our relationship. I felt like my world was crumbling. I was angry, hurt, and felt so betrayed. But it got worse. She didn't want the baby and was willing to sign over her parental rights if my boyfriend agreed to get back together with her. It was like some twisted soap opera, and I was the one getting played. My boyfriend was torn. He didn't want to be with her, but he also didn't want his child to end up in the system. He looked at me, eyes full of regret, and I knew what he was going to say before he even said it. I was faced with a choice: hold on to my resentment and watch a child, his child, get lost in foster care, or forgive the unforgivable and help raise this baby. I thought about the little girl we were already planning to foster, about how I didn't want her to go through what this unborn child would face. I thought about my own issues with infertility and how much I wanted a family. And in the end, I chose forgiveness. I felt weak and desperate, but I couldn't let my feelings stand in the way of what was right for these kids. So, we took in his sister, and I helped him fight for custody of his unborn child. It was a mess of legal battles and emotional turmoil. His ex was unpredictable, sometimes spiteful, sometimes pleading. It was pretty up and down, and I was hanging on by a thread. Then, just when we thought things couldn't get any more complicated, my boyfriend's dad got sick. Really sick. He was the only family my boyfriend had left, and now he was facing the possibility of losing him too. It was like every time we found our footing, the rug was pulled out from under us again. Through all of this, my boyfriend never proposed. It stung, but there was always something more pressing to deal with. I felt more like a caretaker than a partner, and I couldn't help but wonder if he was still with me out of convenience rather than love. But then, one day, his little sister, who had been watching us struggle and persevere, called me Mom. It wasn't a title I had asked for, or even one I thought I wanted, but it hit me hard. In that moment, I realized that despite all the chaos, we had become a family. And maybe just maybe, that was enough. Thanks for reading this whirlwind of an update. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.